When I married Daniel, everyone told me I was lucky. His family was wealthy, respected, and close-knit. His mother, Eleanor, was elegant, soft-spoken, and always perfectly composed. His father had passed away several years earlier, and Daniel was her only child. From the outside, they looked like the kind of family people envied. I believed that too. For the first year of our marriage, Daniel and I lived in a small house about 20 minutes from his mother's home. We had ordinary problems, mortgage payments, grocery bills, disagreements about laundry, and the occasional argument about who forgot to take the trash out. But we were happy. Daniel was thoughtful and affectionate. He would leave little notes beside my coffee cup before going to work. On weekends, we'd drive to the countryside, stop at small restaurants, and spend hours talking about the future. We wanted children. We wanted to save enough money to renovate our house. And eventually, we hoped to build a life that belonged entirely to us. I never imagined that the biggest threat to our marriage would come from inside his own family. It started with a phone call. One Tuesday evening, Daniel and I were eating dinner when his phone rang. He looked at the screen. His expression immediately changed. "It's Mom," he answered. "Hi, Mom." I couldn't hear Eleanor's voice clearly, but I could hear the panic in Daniel's. "What?" He stood up. "Are you okay?" A long pause was followed. Then Daniel grabbed his jacket. "I'm coming." I pushed my chair back. "What happened?" He looked at me. "Mom says she's not feeling well. Should I come with you?" He hesitated. "No," she asked for me. That sentence stayed with me. Not because I minded him going, but because it was the first time I felt something change between us. That night, Daniel didn't come home until almost midnight. When he finally walked through the door, he looked exhausted. I hurried toward him. "Is she okay?" He nodded slowly. "The doctor thinks it might be her heart." My stomach tightened. Her heart? She had chest pain. Did they take her to the hospital? No. She refused. I stared at him. Why would she refuse? Daniel rubbed his forehead. "She said she just wanted me there." I hugged him. "Then we'll figure this out together." He didn't respond. He simply held me. At the time, I thought we were beginning a difficult chapter together. I had no idea I was being deliberately pushed out of my own marriage. The next morning, Daniel called his mother before breakfast. I listened while making coffee. "Did you sleep?" Pause. "Are you still having pain?" Another pause. "Okay, I'll come after work." He hung up. I turned around. "How is she?" "Not good." "Maybe she should see another doctor." "She doesn't want to." I nodded. "Then maybe we should convince her." Daniel looked irritated. "She knows her own body, Emma." I was surprised by his tone. "I'm only trying to help." I know, but he didn't sound like he knew. He sounded defensive. That afternoon, Eleanor called me. It was the first time she'd called me directly since the wedding. Emma, her voice was weak. "Hi, Eleanor. How are you feeling?" "Not very well. I'm sorry. I suppose Daniel told you." "He did," she sighed dramatically. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not. I know Daniel feels responsible for me. He loves you." Another silence. Then she said something that made my hands go cold. "Sometimes I worry that after he married you, I became less important to him." I blinked. "I don't think that's true. You wouldn't understand." "Maybe not, but I care about him too." Her voice became softer. "I know you do." Then she added, "But a wife can replace a mother very quickly." I didn't know how to respond. Before I could say anything, she ended the call. That evening, I told Daniel what she'd said. He became quiet. "Mom's scared. I understand that. She's alone. Then maybe we should arrange for someone to stay with her." He frowned. "Someone?" "A nurse, a caregiver, even a part-time assistant." "No. Why?" "She wants family," I sighed. "Daniel, I'm family too." He looked at me. "I know." But somehow it didn't feel like he meant it. Over the next several weeks, Eleanor's health seemed to deteriorate. Every few days, something happened. She became dizzy. She couldn't breathe. Her blood pressure was dangerously high. She almost fainted. She had terrible chest pain. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't cook. She couldn't drive. And every single time she needed Daniel. At first, I supported him completely. I drove him to her house. I prepared meals. I called pharmacies. I even spent an entire Saturday cleaning her kitchen while Daniel took her to a doctor's appointment. But strangely, her symptoms always seemed to appear when Daniel and I were planning something. Our anniversary dinner, Eleanor suddenly couldn't breathe. A weekend trip. Eleanor had chest pain. Dinner with my parents. Eleanor nearly fainted. The night we planned to discuss buying a larger house. Eleanor called at 9:47 p.m. "Daniel, I think something is seriously wrong." He immediately left. Again, I stayed home alone. At first, I felt guilty for being frustrated. Then I began noticing something. Whenever Daniel arrived at Eleanor's house, her symptoms seemed to improve, and whenever he left, they returned. One evening, I mentioned it. Have you noticed that Mom feels better whenever you're there? Daniel looked at me. What are you implying? Nothing. You are implying something. I'm just saying it's strange. He became angry. She's sick, Emma. I know. Then stop analyzing everything. I stared at him. I am your wife, and she's my mother. I never asked you to choose. He didn't answer. That silence hurt more than an argument. 6 months into Eleanor's supposed illness, Daniel and I had planned an anniversary dinner. It was the first real date we'd had in weeks. I bought a new dress. I made a reservation at a restaurant overlooking the river. Daniel promised he'd leave work early. At 5:12 p.m., his phone rang. He answered. Mom? His face went pale. What happened? I already knew. He hung up. She's having trouble breathing. I stared at him. Again? He grabbed his keys. Emma. Daniel, wait. He stopped. When was the last time she actually went to the hospital? He didn't answer. Exactly. She's scared. I'm scared too. He looked confused. Of what? Of losing my husband. The words escaped before I could stop them. Daniel stared at me. Then he walked out. Our anniversary dinner never happened. I sat alone at the restaurant for 40 minutes before finally leaving. When I came home, Daniel still wasn't there. I called him. No answer. I called again. Nothing. At 11:38 p.m., he finally came home. His clothes smelled faintly of Eleanor's perfume. How is she? She fell asleep. Did you take her to the hospital? No. I laughed bitterly. Of course not. Daniel's face hardened. What is that supposed to mean? It means I don't believe she's as sick as you think. He stared at me as if I'd slapped him. How could you say that? Because every time we try to have a life together, she suddenly gets sick. You're being cruel. No, I'm being honest. He shook his head. You don't understand what it's like to have a sick parent, and you don't understand what it's like to watch your husband disappear every time his mother calls. He walked into the bedroom. He didn't speak to me for 2 days. That was the beginning of the end. Or at least I thought it was. I didn't know the real ending had already been planned by someone else. One morning, Eleanor called me. I need you. I was surprised. What's wrong? I can't stand up. I immediately drove to her house. When I arrived, she was sitting comfortably on the sofa. She looked pale, but she wasn't struggling to breathe. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't sweating. She simply looked tired. I came as soon as I could. She looked at me. Thank you. I sat beside her. Should I take you to the hospital? No. Then what do you need? She looked directly into my eyes. Daniel. I froze. You could call him. I want you to call him. Why? Because when you call, he doesn't answer quickly enough. I slowly stood. Eleanor, I think you should talk to him yourself. She grabbed my wrist. You are trying to take my son away from me. I stared at her. What? You heard me. I have never tried to take Daniel away from you. You have. Her voice suddenly became stronger. For the first time, she didn't sound sick. She sounded angry. You changed him. I love him. You made him forget who raised him. That's not true. You moved him away from me. He is a married man. She stood up. Then she immediately began coughing. It was theatrical, almost exaggerated. I watched her carefully. Are you okay? She looked at me with cold eyes. Not when you're around. I left. I didn't tell Daniel what had happened. Not yet. I wanted proof. 2 weeks later, Daniel came home with a folder. Mom's test results. He placed it on the table. The doctor says she needs rest. I looked at the papers. Can I see them? Daniel hesitated. Why? Because I'm worried. He handed them to me. I read them carefully. Blood tests, heart monitoring, blood pressure, imaging. Everything looked normal, not perfect. But nothing explained the dramatic symptoms Eleanor had been describing. I pointed to the results. Daniel, what? These tests don't show anything serious. She still has symptoms. I know. He took the papers back. You aren't a doctor, no. But you're acting like one. I'm asking questions. You always question my mother. I looked at him. Because something doesn't add up. He shook his head. I can't do this anymore. What do you mean? I'm exhausted, so am I. He looked away. Maybe we need some space. My heart stopped. Are you asking for a separation? I don't know. Because your mother is sick. Because our marriage is unhealthy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Our marriage became unhealthy because every decision we make revolves around your mother. He didn't respond. Then he said, maybe you should stay with your sister for a few days. I packed a bag that night. But before leaving, I looked at him. Daniel, if your mother is truly sick, I'll never forgive myself for doubting her. He said nothing, and if she's not, I stopped. Then one day you'll realize what she has done. I walked out. I stayed with my sister for 5 days. During that time, Daniel barely contacted me. Then, on the 6th night, I received a message. *, we need to talk. I agreed to meet him. We met at a coffee shop near our old neighborhood. He looked exhausted. I miss you, he said. I almost cried. I miss you too. He took a deep breath. Mom is getting worse. I closed my eyes. What happened? She collapsed yesterday. Was she hospitalized? No. I opened my eyes. Why? She refused, Daniel. I know. He rubbed his face. I don't understand anymore. What changed? Yesterday, she told me something. What? She said that if I stayed married to you, she would never recover. I stared at him. What? She said the stress of losing me was killing her. I felt something inside me break. Daniel, that's emotional manipulation. I know. No, you don't. He looked at me. You're right. I was stunned. For the first time, he seemed to understand. Then he reached across the table. Emma, I need your help. What kind? I want to take Mom to a different doctor. I nodded. Okay, but I need you to come with me. I looked at him. Why me? Because I don't trust myself anymore. The appointment was scheduled for Monday morning. The doctor was a cardiologist recommended by one of Daniel's coworkers. Eleanor was furious when she found out. I don't need another doctor. Daniel stood firm. Yes, you do. She looked at me. You did this. I said nothing. The doctor reviewed her medical history. He asked questions. He performed tests. He examined her carefully. Then he said something unexpected. I don't see evidence of the condition you've described. Eleanor's face changed. What do you mean? I mean your heart appears healthy. But I have chest pain. Chest pain can have many causes. What about my blood pressure? Elevated occasionally, not dangerously. She looked at Daniel. I told you. Daniel didn't respond. The doctor continued. I would recommend a psychological evaluation as well. Eleanor stood up. I am not crazy. No one said you were. She stormed out. Daniel followed her. I stayed behind. The doctor looked at me. Has she been under significant emotional stress? I hesitated. She lost her husband years ago. He nodded. Does she seem particularly distressed when her son is away? Yes, that could be relevant. I thanked him. But as I walked outside, I felt something was still missing. The doctor had confirmed my suspicion. But he hadn't explained the details. Why would Eleanor fake illness? What exactly did she want? Then Daniel called me. Emma. His voice sounded strange. I found something. That evening, Daniel asked me to meet him at his mother's house. Eleanor's wasn't there. She had gone to his neighbor's house. Daniel took me upstairs. Mom keeps all her financial papers in here. He opened a desk drawer. Inside were bank statements, insurance documents, property records, and old letters. I don't understand why we're looking through these. Because I found this. He handed me a document. It was a life insurance policy. The beneficiary was Daniel. The amount was enormous. I looked at the date. It had been changed recently. Why would Mom update this? I don't know. Then I noticed something else. There were several withdrawals from an account I didn't recognize. Large withdrawals. Thousands of dollars at a time. I looked at Daniel. Where did this money go? He shook his head. I don't know. We searched further. Then we found receipts. Private nursing consultations. But none of the nurses listed on the receipts had ever visited the house. Daniel called one of the companies. A woman answered. Can I help you? Daniel gave his mother's name. The woman checked the records. Yes, we provide consultation services. Did a nurse visit my mother? No. Then what did she pay for? The woman hesitated. Medical anxiety management. Daniel looked at me. What's that? The woman explains that Eleanor had repeatedly contacted the company asking for ways to simulate symptoms and trigger concern without producing abnormal medical results. My mouth went dry. Daniel's face turned white. Are you sure? Yes. He hung up. Neither of us spoke. Then I noticed another envelope. Inside was a letter. It was from a private investigator. I opened it. The first sentence made my blood run cold. Asterisk subject, Emma Parker. My name. I looked at Daniel. Why did your mother hire a private investigator to investigate me? He took the letter. His hands began shaking. The report contained everything. My childhood, my parents, my job, my bank account, my friendships. Even my relationship history before Daniel. But the strangest section concerned my family. According to the report, my father had once been involved in a business partnership with Eleanor's late husband. The partnership had ended badly. There had been a lawsuit. A large amount of money had disappeared, and Eleanor believed my father had stolen it. But there was more. At the bottom of the report was a note, asterisk cast potential connection between Emma's family and missing estate funds. I looked at Daniel. My father died when I was 17. I know. I had nothing to do with his business. I know. But your mother thinks I married you for money. Daniel closed his eyes. Suddenly, everything made sense then. The accusations, the coldness, the manipulation, the fake illnesses. She had never wanted me in the family. She had been waiting for a reason to remove me. But why fake a medical condition? Then Daniel found another letter. This one was addressed to a lawyer. It said, "Ask if Daniel remains married to Emma, he will eventually lose everything. I must protect him before it is too late." I whispered, "She thinks she's protecting you." Daniel shook his head. "No. What? She's protecting herself." We contacted the lawyer mentioned in the documents. He agreed to meet us the following morning. What he told us changed everything. Years earlier, Daniel's father had established a trust. The trust contained several properties and investment accounts. But the inheritance had one condition. Daniel could only receive full control after reaching a certain age and maintaining an independent household. Eleanor had been the trustee. And there was a second condition. If Daniel divorced his spouse due to family interference, the trust could be reviewed by an independent administrator. That meant Eleanor couldn't simply take the money. She needed Daniel to remain dependent on her. The lawyer explained, "Your mother has been using the trust as leverage." Daniel looked stunned. "Why?" "Because she is financially dependent on it." I stared at him. "How much?" The lawyer told us. Eleanor had been withdrawing money from the trust for years. Some of the withdrawals were legitimate, others weren't. If Daniel discovered the full accounting, she could face serious legal consequences. The fake illness wasn't simply about control. It was a distraction. Every time Daniel rushed to her house, he wasn't just giving her emotional attention. He was unknowingly signing documents, approving payments, handling accounts, and trusting her completely. She needed him emotionally dependent so he wouldn't question her financially. Daniel sat in silence, then he whispered, "She used me." The lawyer nodded. "She appears to have." I reached for Daniel's hand. This time he didn't pull away. We decided not to confront Eleanor immediately. Instead, we gathered evidence, medical records, financial statements, phone logs, the private investigator's report, the consultation receipts, everything. Then something happened that none of us expected. Eleanor called Daniel. Her voice sounded weak. "Son?" "Yes, Mom." "I think I'm dying." Daniel closed his eyes. "I'm coming." I watched him carefully. He looked at me. Then he said, "No, silence. You need a doctor." "I don't need a doctor. Then you're not dying." Her voice changed immediately. "You've been talking, Emma." Daniel didn't answer. "I knew she would turn you against me. You did that yourself." "Daniel, I know everything." Silence. "What do you mean?" "I know about the fake symptoms." "Nothing." "I know about the money." Still nothing. "I know about the investigator." Then Eleanor started crying. Not coughing, not gasping, crying. "You don't understand." Daniel's voice broke. "Then explain it. I was protecting you." "From what?" "From her. She did nothing to me." Her father destroyed your father's business." "That's just not true." "It is. We have the records." Silence. Then Eleanor said, "You don't know the whole story." Daniel froze. "What story?" "My husband wasn't innocent." I looked at Daniel. Eleanor continued. "Your father was the one who stole the money." Daniel couldn't speak. "Your father blamed Emma's father." She was crying now. I spent years believing the lie. Then she whispered, "But your father left a confession." Daniel's face went pale. "Where?" "In the old house." We went to the old house that afternoon. It had been empty for years. The lawyer helped us search. Behind a loose wooden panel in the study, we found a small metal box. Inside was a letter. Daniel opened it. His father's handwriting filled the page. He confessed everything. He had taken the money. He had blamed Emma's father. He had destroyed another man's reputation to protect himself. And Eleanor had eventually discovered the truth. But she never told anyone. Why? Because revealing the truth would destroy the family. She carried the secret for decades. Then Daniel found something else. A second letter. This one was written by Eleanor. It had never been sent. It said, "I know what you did. I know Emma's father was innocent, but I cannot let our son lose everything because of your mistake." Daniel stared at the paper. She knew. I nodded. She knew my father was innocent. He looked at me. "She knew your family was never after our money. Then why did she hate you?" We found the answer in the final paragraph. Eleanor believed that if Daniel married me, he would eventually discover the truth, and once he did, he would turn against her. She wasn't trying to protect him from me. She was trying to protect herself from the consequences of the past. The illness had been her weapon. Fear had been her shield. And Daniel had been caught between guilt and love for years. We returned to Eleanor's house. She was waiting. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Not sick, just old, tired, afraid. Daniel placed the letters on the table. "Why didn't you tell me?" She looked at me. "I wanted to, but you didn't." "I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of losing you." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "You almost made me lose my wife." Eleanor looked at me. "I'm sorry." It was the first time she'd ever said those words. I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, "You didn't just hurt me." She looked down. "You taught your son that loving his wife meant betraying his mother." She began to cry. "I know. You made him choose. I know. You pretended to be sick. I know. Why?" She's looked at Daniel. "Because when your father died, you were all I had," Daniel whispered. "You still had me." "No." She shook her head. "I had a frightened boy who became a man before I was ready." She looked at me. "And then you came along." I understood then. Not completely, but enough. Eleanor wasn't simply evil. She was afraid, but fear didn't excuse what she'd done. She had allowed her fear to become manipulation, and manipulation had now nearly destroyed 3 lives. Daniel took my hand. "I'm going home with Emma." Eleanor looked at him. "You're leaving me?" "No, I'm not abandoning you." "Then why does it feel like you are?" "Because I finally understand that being your son doesn't mean being responsible for your happiness." She cried. He continued, "I love you." She looked at him. "But I love my wife too." For the first time, Eleanor didn't fight him. She simply nodded. I expected revenge. I expected Daniel to cut her off. Instead, he did something more difficult. He established boundaries. He hired a professional caregiver. He appointed an independent financial administrator for the trust. He required all medical concerns to be handled through actual doctors. And he stopped allowing emergencies to dictate our marriage. Eleanor was furious at first. Then she became quiet. Months passed slowly. Things changed. 1 year later, Eleanor sent me a letter. I almost didn't open it. But I did. It contained only 1 page. Asterisk, Emma, I spent years believing that if I lost control of my son, I would lose everything. Asterisk, I was wrong. Asterisk, the truth is, I had already lost him the moment I made him afraid to love you. Asterisk, you didn't steal my son. Asterisk, I pushed him away myself. I folded the letter. I didn't forgive her immediately. Forgiveness isn't something you owe someone simply because they apologize. But I began to understand. Some people hurt others because they are cruel. Others hurt people because they are terrified. And sometimes the damage is just as severe either way. The financial investigation eventually revealed that Eleanor had misused a significant portion of the family trust. She was required to repay much of it. Some properties had to be sold. But Daniel refused to destroy her. He allowed her to keep the home where she'd lived for decades. He also made sure she had proper medical care. The strangest part was that, once the financial pressure disappeared, Eleanor's mysterious symptoms gradually disappeared too. Her chest pains became rare. Her dizziness stopped. Her blood pressure stabilized. And she eventually admitted something to her doctor. "I wasn't pretending that I felt bad," the doctor asked. "What do you mean?" "I felt terrible whenever my son left me." The doctor explained that anxiety could produce real physical symptoms. That didn't erase her manipulation, but it explained something important. Her suffering had been real. Her strategy had been deliberate. Both things could be true at the same time. Daniel and I didn't magically become happy again. Trust takes time. There were nights when I'd wake up and remember him leaving me at that restaurant. There were moments when a phone call from his mother made my heart race. Sometimes I wondered whether he'd ever choose me again. So we went to counseling. We learned how to communicate. We'd learned how to set boundaries. Most importantly, Daniel learned that protecting his marriage didn't mean abandoning his mother. And I learned that supporting my husband didn't mean sacrificing myself. A year after everything happened, we renewed our wedding vows. There was no huge ceremony, just a small gathering in our backyard. My sister was there, a few close friends, and Eleanor. She sat quietly in the front row. When Daniel looked at me, he said, "I spent too long believing that choosing you meant losing my mother." He took my hands. "Now I understand that love doesn't require choosing between people. It requires boundaries, honesty, and courage." I cried. Not because everything was perfect, but because we had survived something that was supposed to destroy us. 3 months after renewing our vows, I discovered I was pregnant. I stared at the test for almost 10 minutes. Then I walked into the kitchen. "Daniel," he looked up. "What?" I handed him the test. He stared at it, then looked at me. "Are we?" I nodded. He started laughing, then crying. Then he pulled me into his arms. For us 9 years, our home felt completely peaceful. When we told Eleanor, she cried. But this time, there was no manipulation, no guilt, no dramatic symptoms. She simply hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered. I wasn't ready to say everything was forgiven, but I hugged her back. "You're welcome." People often think family drama is about villains and victims, but real life is rarely that simple. Eleanor hurt me. She manipulated Daniel. She lied about being sick. She interfered in our marriage. She misused family money. Those things were wrong. There is no excuse for them. But I also learned that Understanding someone's pain doesn't mean accepting their behavior. You can understand why someone is afraid and still tell them no. You can forgive someone without trusting them completely. You can love a family member without allowing them to control your life. And most importantly, marriage requires two people who are willing to protect the relationship they built together. For a long time, I believed my biggest battle was against my mother-in-law. I was wrong. My biggest battle was against the fear that I would lose my husband. And Daniel's biggest battle was against the belief that he had to sacrifice his marriage to prove he was a good son. In the end, neither of us had to choose. We simply had to stop allowing time to make our decisions. Eleanor didn't destroy our marriage, but she came frighteningly close, and if Daniel hadn't finally asked questions, we might never have discovered the truth. Sometimes the person who constantly says, "I'm sick because of you," isn't asking for love. They're asking for control. And sometimes the hardest form of love is saying, "I love you, but I will not let you destroy me." Today, when my daughter asks about her grandmother, I don't tell her that Grandma was a monster. I tell her Grandma made terrible choices. I tell her Grandma was afraid. And I tell her that being afraid never gives us permission to hurt the people we love. Because families don't become strong by pretending everything is perfect. They become strong when someone finally has the courage to tell the truth. And that was the truth I learned the hard way. Asterisk, you can love your family deeply and still draw a line. Asterisk, you can forgive without forgetting. Asterisk, and you can choose your marriage without abandoning the people who raised you. Most importantly, if someone repeatedly forces you to choose between loving them and loving yourself, sometimes the healthiest answer is to choose yourself first. Because love without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. And I had spent enough years surrendering. My life, my marriage, and my future finally belonged to me again. And this time, I wasn't afraid to protect them.